You are not lazy, you are not undisciplined. And the reason you can't lose weight after 30 is not a character flaw. It is a biological system running exactly as designed, just not designed for the modern world today. We're going inside the human body after the age of 30. We're going to watch at the cellular level why fat stops leaving and why the strategies that worked at 22 now do nothing. The answer involves 3 hormones, 2 organ systems, and one mechanism that almost nobody talks about. Let's begin. Visual metaphor: think of your metabolism like a factory. At 22, that factory runs 3 shifts. Machines are new. Workers are fast. Raw material comes in, energy goes out, and waste is disposed of efficiently. By 35, the factory hasn't closed, but the machinery has aged. Some lines have slowed. Management, meaning your hormones, has changed its priorities. The factory is now running in conservation mode. And conservation mode biologically means storing fat instead of burning it. The question isn't why the factory broke. The question is which specific machines changed and why. That's what we're investigating today. Metabolism shift, the muscle problem. The first machine to slow down after 30 is muscle. Not just how much you have, but how active it is. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive. It burns calories just to exist at rest. 1 kilogram of muscle burns approximately 13 kilocalories per day. Fat tissue burns almost nothing, about 4.5 kilocalories per kilogram. This means your body composition, the ratio of muscle to fat, is one of the most powerful determinants of how fast your metabolism runs. Here is the problem: beginning around age 30, humans lose an average of 3 to 8% of their muscle mass per decade. This is called sarcopenia. It isn't dramatic. You don't feel it happening, but the math is merciless. Lose 2 kilograms of muscle over the course of your 30s, and your resting metabolic rate drops by 26 calories per day. That's 9,490 calories per year. That's roughly 1.2 kilograms of fat your body now stores instead of burns, without you changing anything in your diet or activity level. But this is only the beginning, because the real mechanism driving fat storage after 30 isn't just muscle loss. It's what drives the muscle loss in the first place. Gear phase 2, the hormone shift, testosterone plus estrogen. At the center of the post-30 fat gain story is a hormonal transition that happens in both men and women, but through completely different pathways. In men, testosterone begins a slow, steady decline starting in the late 20s. By 35, most men have measurably lower testosterone than they did at 25. Testosterone isn't just a sex hormone, it is a body composition hormone. It signals muscle cells to grow. It directs the body to use fat as fuel. It increases the density of mitochondria, the energy-burning organelles inside cells. When testosterone drops, the body receives a different set of instructions. Visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat that wraps around your organs, becomes more metabolically active. It begins converting androgens into estrogen through a process called aromatization. The more visceral fat you accumulate, the more estrogen you produce. The more estrogen you produce in this context, the more fat storage signals your body receives. It becomes a self-reinforcing loop. In women, the transition is more dramatic and more sudden. As estrogen levels drop in the years approaching menopause, a period called perimenopause that can begin as early as the mid-30s, the distribution of body fat changes fundamentally. Fat that once deposited in the hips and thighs, subcutaneous fat, begins shifting to the abdomen. This isn't cosmetic visceral fat, it is hormonally active tissue. It releases inflammatory cytokines. It disrupts insulin signaling. It accelerates the very hormonal decline that's causing it to accumulate in both sexes. This hormone shift is real, measurable, and has profound consequences for how the body handles the food you eat. The cortisol problem, stress plus fat storage. There's a third hormone in this story that almost nobody talks about in the context of weight gain after 30. And that hormone is cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. It's released by the adrenal glands in response to perceived threats, physical danger, emotional stress, poor sleep, caloric restriction, and intense exercise. In short bursts, cortisol is essential. It mobilizes energy, it sharpens focus. It is the reason humans survive predators for hundreds of thousands of years. But here is the critical biology. Cortisol directly stimulates fat storage in visceral adipose tissue, not subcutaneous fat, the fat under your skin. Visceral fat, the dangerous fat around your organs. Visceral fat cells have 4 times more cortisol receptors than subcutaneous fat cells. This means that in a chronically stressed state, your body is actively and preferentially depositing fat in the most dangerous place possible, deep in your abdomen. And after 30, the compounding factors for chronic cortisol elevation multiply rapidly. Work pressure, financial stress, sleep debt that accumulates over years, children, career. And here is the trap that nobody warns you about. Aggressive dieting, eating very little, is itself a cortisol trigger. When you slash your calories dramatically, your body interprets this as famine. Your cortisol rises. Your thyroid output drops to conserve energy. Your body becomes more efficient at extracting calories from whatever food you do eat. The stricter the diet, the harder the biology fights back. This is not weakness. This is a survival mechanism 200,000 years in the making. Mechanism: deep dive, insulin resistance. Underlying all 3 of these hormonal shifts is a single metabolic mechanism that amplifies everything: insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone that unlocks cells to receive glucose for energy. In an insulin-sensitive body, the body you had at 22 insulin is efficient. It takes small amounts of the hormone to clear glucose from the bloodstream quickly. Fat cells stay relatively unreceptive to storage signals. Muscle cells are the preferred destination for glucose. But as you age, compounded by chronic cortisol, reduced muscle mass, disrupted sleep, and visceral fat accumulation, your cells become less responsive to insulin signal. The pancreas compensates by producing more. Chronically elevated insulin hyperinsulinemia is one of the most powerful fat storage signals in human biology. Insulin directly inhibits lipolysis, the process of breaking down stored fat for energy. While insulin is elevated, your fat cells are biochemically locked. They cannot release fat into the bloodstream to be burned. It doesn't matter how hard you exercise. The lock is chemical, not physical. This is why people in their 30s and 40s can exercise for an hour a day, eat a moderate diet, and still not lose weight. The hormonal environment: elevated cortisol, declining sex hormones, rising insulin has created conditions where fat burning is physiologically suppressed. MYTH busting, the calorie trap. Here is what every diet industry advertisement gets wrong about weight loss after 30. They treat it as a math problem. Calories in minus calories out. Eat less, move more. And they're technically correct in a controlled laboratory setting with robots. In a living human over 35, operating under work stress, poor sleep, hormonal decline, and years of dieting history, the equation is running on a broken calculator. The calorie model assumes your metabolism is fixed. It isn't. It downregulates in response to restriction. It assumes all calories are processed identically. They aren't. 200 calories of white rice and 200 calories of broccoli produce completely different hormonal responses, and it assumes willpower is the limiting factor. But when cortisol is high and insulin is elevated and testosterone or estrogen is declining, your hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, shift in ways that make caloric restriction feel physiologically impossible. It isn't in your head, it's in your blood work. Practical steps: 3 exact actions. Step 1. Protect and build muscle aggressively. This is the single highest leverage action available to you after 30. Resistance training, lifting weights, using resistance bands, or doing loaded bodyweight exercises sends a direct signal to preserve and grow muscle tissue. This counters sarcopenia. It increases insulin sensitivity. It raises your resting metabolic rate without any change to your diet. Minimum effective dose: 2 sessions per week, targeting all major muscle groups. This is not optional. This is metabolic medicine. Step 2. Attack cortisol first, not calories. If you're chronically stressed, sleeping less than 7 hours per night, and eating irregularly, fixing your diet without addressing cortisol is like bailing water from a boat with a hole in it. Prioritize sleep architecture. Consistent sleep and wake times, darkness, and a minimum of 7 uninterrupted hours. This alone measurably reduces visceral fat over time, independent of diet. Step 3. Stabilize insulin with food sequencing and timing. You do not need to adopt a radical diet. You need to stop spiking insulin repeatedly throughout the day. Eat protein and fat before carbohydrates at the same meal. Research shows this reduces the post-meal glucose spike by up to 40%. And extend the period between your last meal and your first meal of the next day to at least 12 hours. These 2 changes restructure your hormonal environment without requiring willpower or caloric suffering. Call TO. Action. Your body after 30 is not betraying you. It is executing a program written by millions of years of evolution to help you survive scarcity, stress, and physical danger. The environment changed. The program didn't. The good news is you don't need to fight your biology. You need to give it different inputs. Rebuild the muscle, lower the cortisol, stabilize the insulin, and watch what a body that's running on the right signals can do. If this changed how you think about the biology behind your own body, leave a comment below. What's the one thing you've been told about weight loss that you now realize was completely wrong? I want to know, and I'll see you in the next one.